Within the darker creases of biology, there are organisms that blur the line between scavenger and architect of flesh. The mimic stalks these thresholds. It is patient, it is intelligent, and it learns by what it devours. Species designation: the mimic. Habitat: the narrow caverns and serrated ridges of Widow's Peak on the world of Darkenrock. Its diet: neural tissue, raw meat, and bioorganic matter used for replication. Its temperament: well, it's an ambush predator with advanced mimicry abilities. The mimic's form borrows heavily from spiders, and us, Homo sapiens. Its category: arachnoid. 4 great legs bearing a giant central mass, giving it speed and reach across jagged terrain. The skull-like feature hides a mouth that extends down the neck, a long maw lined with recurved, jagged teeth, reminiscent of both predatory arthropods and certain extreme mammalian feeders. The chest tentacles are used to pull things in, along with its 2 other giant tentacles on the outside of the chest that help it move through the jagged terrain a little bit more easily. Its dorsal sac, like an expandable pouch. The sac functions not only as a storage, but as a developmental crucible, a living incubator where absorbed biomass is reconfigured, remaking what it eats. Its shell looks hard, but it's soft, superficially rigid to deter small predators, yet elastically compressible to allow passage through narrow fissures and into crevices where prey shelter. The sensory ridges distributed across the body detect subtle bioelectric and vocal signatures, enabling the mimic to reproduce recorded sounds. Anything from rockfall echoes to the whispers of a human speech. With compiled field data and preserved tissue studies, we now attempt a physical reconstruction of the organism. Reproduction is an act of consumption. Individuals do not spawn by gametic exchange alone. They must first absorb other species to amass material in the sac. Only when sufficient resources accumulate can a mature mimic gestate and birth an offspring. These offsprings initially take the form of the absorbed organism, precise replicas. Once ready, the juvenile mimic will undergo a metamorphosis into an arachnoid, devouring and absorbing to build their own sacs. Once that's done, it has become an adult. This can take months to years, but it all depends on how often it feeds. The more biomass there is to feed on, the quicker it will become an adult. In the caverns of Widow's Peak, the mimic acts as both predator and ecosystem engineer. It is an intelligent hunter. It watches, it records, it reproduces. By emitting a stolen sound, a child's laugh, the call of a carrion scavenger, it draws curious life into shadow. The act of luring is precise. The mimic selects the sound best suited to local prey density and context. When a mature mimic reaches old age, its dorsal sac will detach, an enormous volatile mass enriched with lipids and tissue structures required by juvenile mimics. These detached sacs are rarely wasted. Other subadults will scavenge them, accelerating their own development and continuing the cycle. The result is a shifting cultural ecology of replication and reuse, where identity is built from what it is eaten. Now let's talk about some lore. Now, the first account from the ridge settlements set up for research and observation tell the same story. The first account from the ridge settlements set up for research and observation tell a similar story of those who have encountered the mimic. A mournful voice calling from the dark, coaxing them into the rocky maze. Now, the first Widow's Peak research team was tagged as missing for weeks. What was interesting was that the first team would reappear back at camp in the late of night, completely nude, all wearable gear gone. The new team that had taken up post there, who took over, would describe faint glowing eyes in the dark, emerging from the brush just below where Widow's Peak began. As the survivors were being helped, these mimics, well, they began to change. First, the spine begins to elongate, the chest expanding like a balloon until it splits open, revealing the tentacle feelers. The skull pushing out as the neck elongates with the spine. A slight rip appears where teeth begin to protrude. The arms and legs contort and snap, sharpening into a point becoming similar to arachnoid legs. Survivors of the mimic tell of finding exact replicas of fallen companions, uncanny facsimiles born of the mimic's assimilation. These copies are not mere illusions, they are provisional forms, shells that can later be refashioned into new mimics only after absorbing sufficient biomass. The ethics of such a lifeform are moot on Darkenrock. There is no moral calculus in replication, only ecological necessity. Now, for the first time, we present the reconstructed specimen. Observe the integrated adaptations, the elongated feeding canal, the chest tentacles evolved for both lure and ingestion. Note how the dorsal sac layered tissue imply a capacity for biochemical remodeling, the very heart of its reproductive economy. In a world shaped by abrasion and hunger, the mimic is an answer to a persistent question: how do you persist in a place that offers identity as a resource? If you wish to access further files, be sure to subscribe for further archived specimens.